The first thing is the loops. I had find it a very interesting thing. I didn't know before that JavaScript had so many loops or so many ways to do a loop.
Really?
So yes, but I will start with the do while. It's very simple. The do while is
Do I look? Okay.
yes, do while loop is very similar to other languages. You first have the statement, and after it you put the condition. Uh, the statement will always run one time, but after it, if it if the condition is true, it will loop again, infinite or until meet the condition. I did some examples here to loop. When I click over a text, it will print 10 times, 5 times, 4 times. As you can see here, if it is less than 10, it will print 10 times. But if I put it as a while loop, it will print on 9 times. So in a while loop, I must place a equal sign. And it will print 11 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay. Um, the next I can present is the while loop. The while loop is very similar to do while, but the do while each run at least one time the statement in the loop, but the while loop will run only if the conditions is met.
Mhm.
If it's not met, it will not run the loop. Sometimes two and 5 times, etc. Um, but we have as how can I say it? The do while is not recommended to be used. It's recommended to use the while instead to use do while, because do while always will run at least one time the statements in the loop. And sometimes this can cause some errors or confusion to programmers. The other loop we have is the for loop. It's also common in other programming languages. We do the keyword for. We have the initialization. Here we will start a variable. We place the condition and the parse. The parse is the increment. How this variable increment is a short way to do a loop compared
Mhm.
to other loops techniques. And it will do the same thing. The other loop that we have is the for in loop. For example, the for in loop is very interesting. It's good to use with JavaScript objects. Here we have a, you can see well my screen, or it's very little the text.
Mhm.
Okay, so what will do the for in? The for in we have a variable that will be the proper name in the object. Here we have the car object, as you can see. The car object have the maker property and the model property. And I state in this car info function a variable property that will represent each property in car object. And so here I will click only to see the property. So the result object that you print here in car will get the car dot plus the property text and its tag in each took, get the car dot the property name equal to car and the property name that will be forged as stated here. And it will do for each property in the object. It's very useful. Uh, I don't really know if the other programming languages have this kind of a loop. I never saw it in C
Yes,
Sharp.
Java has it.
Java has?
Java, Python, what else? Let me see. PHP has it. Yeah, but not C++ or C.
It's good to know. I never had
As
seen it
I
before.
know, I have never used in C++ and C that kind of loop, but I have used in Java and I have used in PHP.
It's good to know, but it's very useful to have
Yeah,
a
yeah.
associate because Java don't have a associative array, so we have a object. So, but it's very useful to get the name of the property in objects to loop it. I like it. And the other is the for of. So the for of will get it will be used more for arrays because arrays have the numeric index
Mm-hmm.
and it will work as index a number index in the array. So for example, we have a here. Oops, oh, sorry.
Actually, I have never used that.
So
What one
it's
thing?
very interesting. I knew it in C sharp, because it's for each
Mm.
the name.
Oh, you are talking of the for loop. Okay.
No, don't have a for each in JavaScript, but have the for in that is more used and recommend for arrays because we have a only number index in arrays, and it will work exactly the same, but we only pass through all the index numbers, not text numbers. Not text numbers to property names. So the other one um, is the label. Label was something new for me too. For example, here, let me see, find it. Hmm? Oh, sorry, I click in other command. So the label will work as a name for the loop. For example, we have a hello 10. It is referring to this loop, and it's also.
Mm.
So if this criteria is met, it will continue the loop hello 10. So it will not continue this loop, but it will come back to here and it will loop this scope. It's very interesting because if not, it will break the loop 10. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very useful to get a reference in a specific loop when you have a nested loops inside it.
Mm-hmm.
Is the label is a name for to reference a loop scope. It's very useful. This time I put numbers in the hellos. It's more easy to count. Here I use the hello 5. It will do the same thing, the hello fortune. So uh, other things is the conditions. Yeah, yes, condition statements. In JavaScript, we have let me close it, not get confused. We have the if condition. It's very common in programming languages. We will place the if keyword, and between the parentheses, we will place our condition. If it's true, it will run this condition. Else is if this condition is not true, it will execute it. And we can use the else if because it is not true and we have a this condition. Or if all things is false, you can use the else. It is only for it. I did a little example of how much apples Mary has and how much friends she have. So Mary ate alone the apples because she liked to eat two apples.
Mhm.
Other conditions we have in JavaScript is the switch. Switch is very similar to if conditions, and because it's sorry, it's similar in the way that we have the switch keyword, we have the variable to analyze the values that it have, and case it has this value or this condition. I use a condition to use with switch to test. If case it's less or equal to 0, I use the column to express my statement, what we execute. Uh, Reading the Firefox Mozilla Foundation's explanation about it, I learned why we must use the break keyword. I knew before that we need to use the break keyword, but why we must use it? Because the programming language, you understand that if it meets this condition, it will do all the other statements until the end of the scope. So it's because you must use the break to get out of the scope and continue the code after it. And this is only it. We have the switch, analyze
Or
the
you can
value.
use default. At the end, it can have default. Do you? Oh yeah. On the default, usually people do it in default because if none of the conditions met, then you have to get out of the loop.
Ah, yes, thank you. You can use the default too. We only will place break after the default
Oh.
if we put the default here, and then we must place a break here. But but if it is in the end, don't have a problem because it is the end of the scope.
Yeah.
It was an interesting thing that I learned studying it. I didn't know before.
Mm.
Um, the other things do for in function if condition label switch variables and arrays is the last topics. Um, the assignment asked for variables, arrays, and associative arrays.
Mhm.
So JavaScript, unfortunately, it's not unfortunately, we have the object. We don't have associative array. We can associative arrays is when we have a name to associate array index, and it's not a ordered array. We don't have a order inside the array. We have only the name index, different from the number index when we can place in orders.
Mm.
So I built here a little example with variables. Variables is when the programming language reserve a place in the RAM memory to place some values. As the name is stated, it's a variable. It can change. It's not necessary it can be forever this value. Uh, and I use the arrays is when you have a variable name referring to many values in the RAM memory when is stored these values. For example, it's in my HTML. So I did some examples here, how to use. It's a variable. First name is getting this input text value. Last name is doing the same thing, but for last name input text. And the array is a full name variable that will store two values, the first name and the last name. We can do it also using the keyword, the function, new array, the constructor of the array, because array is an object, is a special object in JavaScript. So you can create it using the constructor and placing the variables inside the constructor's arguments, but it's not recommend. It cannot. It can give some error sometimes. It's not recommend to use it. It's more recommend to use this way. And we can access the array by the brackets. I remember the word, the brackets. Between the brackets, we can use the number index to access its values. So associative array don't work. For example, I have the full name variable as here, and it have an index. It's array. I try to put the middle name as associative name and placing it, Bernardo is my middle name, but it didn't work. So,
It didn't.
and
Interesting.
and I tried to print it and it will not work. Associative. I put to print this text if the array is not because how will you know if it's an object or is a variable? We can use the function is array type. We place the name of the array and the I put is array type. I forgot what I put here after the array. Full name. Sorry, I know that we use the is array type. We place the full name, and after we place this, but I don't remember why I placed this text.
Okay, it's fine. You're okay.
Okay, I will after I will look again my notes. Well, so but the associative array is replaced in JavaScript using the objects. We have the first name property. We place the name in the full name array, the middle name, last name. We place here the object and it. So why it's going on it? Sorry, it's not this function. Was a function that I created. I use it only to get the element ID to try to print it in the text. So now I understood it. The function is instance of array. You get the name. In this case, it will be the is array type. Full name is our array here. So I will
Let me
place it.
get my glasses. Just a second. I'm
Okay.
gonna get- Yes, go on, please.
Okay. So now I remember what I did. Sorry about that. So we place the name of the object. It's an array or that is a special object or is a normal object as a full name. So I place the full name into your object and the index that I want to search is the full name. As I For example, here,
Can I ask you something? Did you
yes,
say that associative arrays do not work in JavaScript?
yes,
And where's the associative array here? I cannot see which one you're doing as an associative array.
here.
This one? Oh,
So
you are trying to do like that.
yes,
Oh,
I tried to do, but it will not work.
it okay. So the way usually you do it, I will tell you just a second. Give me a second.
Hmm.
This is you usually don't do it that way. That's why it didn't work. It might not work if you will do it that way. You kind of treat it like an object, if that makes sense. Let me show you something in my example here. Where's the first one? Let me just say condition statement, this one. Let it open. So let's see. Can I share the screen too, so we can share both?
Hmm.
Let's see. How can I share the screen? The one. It's Spanish. All right. Can you see me? Can
Yes,
you see the screen? I mean,
yes, I
infinite
can.
number of screens, whatever it is. Can you see this? That's usually what the associative array looks like. So I made a person, right? And then
Yes.
equals, and then that's what I do. I just say, because it says it has key value as a pair. Like this is a key, and that's a value. Does it
Hmm.
make sense? So
Yes.
that's actually an object. This is our object, but
Hmm.
it can also be considered like a if I will do something like, I can say var array and calls new array. Okay, maybe, and then I can do like this, and I can say like, basically associative arrays and objects are almost like kind of the same thing, and then you just say key here. Let's see, key, and then you give them value. Does it make sense?
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah, that's basically it. Nothing like fancy. Yeah, that's all. Anyway, that's it. I'm
Okay.
just gonna stop here.
Mhm. So I was um, I
But
was
keep
talking
going.
about it because the .3c screw states
Do you
that
say that it doesn't?
uh, it states that don't have a associative array. But I don't know if have some updates or something like this.
Then don't worry about it.
Uh,
Fine.
so I don't know, but it's become an object.
Because it's really messy. I don't know why they do this, but like usually like when you're doing programming in C++, it's like really like well defined. Even like when I was doing last what do you call that one, assignment, did you remember about the objects? Like you don't create objects like this in C++ or in Java. You create total different way. You create like classes.
Hmm. Yes.
So, but in JavaScript, you created objects like well, you can create also objects like classes, but also you can create it like functions,
Hmm.
and then they are treated like objects, which is like super weird for me. I have never experienced something like that, so I had to look it up actually because it was kind of confusing. Anyway, sorry, because JavaScript is like dynamically typed language, so it's kind of weird, you know.
Yes, I can understand you. So the share my screen, but this function here, the instance of, is to find the who is the object constructor. If in the object it's an array, it will return a true, and it will print in the page. It's a array object yet. So it's what I tried to do and print this answer. And else, this is the other treatment that I did for the full object. And the full object will print um, what it's yes, it's not an array. We'll get a false answer, and we will execute the else. And the else will print all the properties in this object in the screen. So is the way to know if it's an object or it is an array instance of. I have another way in the W3C school that it explained. It's I passed instance of that I use, but you can use the is array. But having used an object, it's returned as array. So I was a little confused in this function here.
Because when you used it in the object, it returned that it was an array.
Yes.
Object, yeah, because it's kind of is.
Yes, it's a kind of.
So
yes.
In JavaScript it will be, because there's like very similar, but in other languages it's like, as I said, in like in Java or C++, it's a little bit different. It won't do that if you like. There's like clear definition what the array and what the object is.
So
that makes sense.
But that's it. It is. So it's only it. There's conditions, the loops and variables, associative arrays, and the arrays in JavaScript. It's a little weird, as you stated, but it's a very interesting language.
Good. Do
you have some questions or comments?
I think I already did, if I had. Yeah, you did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you. I will finish the transmission.